The year is 1447. Deep in the forests of Wallachia, a 19-year-old prince kneels in the mud, his hands bound behind his back. Saxon executioners stand over him, holding a red-hot iron poker that glows like the fires of hell itself. This young man is Mircea II, eldest son of Vlad Dracula and older brother of the boy who will become history's most infamous monster, Vlad the Impaler. In minutes, they will blind him with that burning poker and bury him alive in the cold earth. But before we witness the horror of his end, you need to understand how a prince born into one of Europe's most powerful bloodlines became a pawn in a game played between empires, betrayed by the very people he fought to protect. This is not the story of Vlad the Impaler that you know. This is the forgotten tragedy of the brother who came before him, the prince whose brutal death planted the seeds of vengeance that would terrify an empire. The date is January 20th, 1437. In the grand hall of the princely court in Targovist, Vlad II Dracul, a member of the Order of the Dragon, issues a charter that mentions his first-born sons for the very first time. The oldest is a boy named Mircea, around 9 years old, named after his legendary grandfather Mircea the Elder, who had defeated Ottoman Sultan Bayezid I at the Battle of Varna in 1395. Standing beside him is his younger brother, a 6-year-old boy named Vlad. The two princes have no idea that within a decade, one will be tortured to death and the other will become the most feared man in Europe. Before we dive deeper into this forgotten corner of medieval brutality, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. To understand Mircea's fate, you need to understand the death trap his father inherited. Wallachia in the 1430s wasn't a country, it was a killing floor squeezed between two grinding millstones. To the south, the Ottoman Empire under Sultan Mircea II was expanding like a cancer, swallowing Christian kingdoms one fortress at a time. To the north, the Kingdom of Hungary under János Hunyadi, a military genius and fervent Christian crusader, demanded absolute loyalty and tribute. Wallachia sat directly in the middle, a buffer state that both empires wanted to control. Every Wallachian prince faced the same impossible choice: submit to the Ottomans and face Hungarian invasion, or ally with Hungary and face Ottoman annihilation. There was no third option. There was no independence. There was only survival through betrayal, compromise, and blood. Vlad II Dracul understood this game better than most. Born an illegitimate son of Mircea the Elder, he had spent years at the court of Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund of Luxembourg, who inducted him into the Order of the Dragon, an elite brotherhood of knights sworn to defend Christianity against the Ottoman threat. The dragon symbol gave Vlad his nickname, Dracul, meaning the dragon in Romanian, but Dracul also meant something else, the devil, and in the world of 15th-century Balkan politics, you needed to be a devil to survive. In 1436, Vlad Dracul seized the throne of Wallachia after the death of his half-brother Alexandru I Aldea. He brought with him his 3 legitimate sons, 9-year-old Mircea, 6-year-old Vlad, and infant Radu. He also brought something far more dangerous: ambition. Vlad Dracul wanted to play both empires against each other, to extract concessions from the Ottomans while maintaining his Christian credentials with Hungary. It was a high-wire act performed over a pit of stakes. One wrong step meant death for him and everyone he loved. The year is 1442. Sultan Mircea II summons Vlad Dracul to the Ottoman capital of Edirne to renew his oath of vassalage and pay his annual tribute. The message is clear: come alone or we invade. But Vlad Dracul knows he cannot leave his throne unguarded. Before departing in March 1442, he does something that will seal his eldest son's fate. He appoints 14-year-old Mircea as regent of Wallachia during his absence. The boy prince now sits on a throne made of knives, ruling a country surrounded by wolves. Mircea doesn't know what awaits his father in Edirne. He doesn't know that Sultan Murad has no intention of letting Vlad Dracul return. The moment Vlad Dracul arrives at the Ottoman court, he is accused of treachery, of secretly communicating with János Hunyadi and plotting against Ottoman interests. The Sultan orders him imprisoned. Then Murad makes his move. He dispatches a force of 12,000 Ottoman soldiers across the Danube with orders to invade Wallachia and remove the House of Dracula from power permanently. The Ottoman army marches north like a flood of steel and fire, heading straight for Targovist, where a 14-year-old boy sits on his father's throne, completely unaware that an army 5 times the size of anything he can muster is coming to destroy him. But Mircea never faces that army. Because someone else moves first. János Hunyadi, the White Knight of Hungary, hears about the Ottoman invasion and sees an opportunity. If the Ottomans install a puppet prince in Wallachia, the entire southern border of Hungary will be exposed. Hunyadi decides to act before the Ottomans can secure their conquest. In late 1442, he crosses the Carpathian Mountains with a Hungarian army, smashes through the Ottoman invasion force, and drives toward Targovist. Mircea has nowhere to run. He is not a warrior, not yet. He is a boy who has been on the throne for less than 6 months. When Hunyadi's cavalry appears on the horizon, Mircea makes the only choice available to a prince without an army. He flees into the forests and goes into hiding. Hunyadi installs his own puppet on the Wallachian throne, Basarab II, a rival claimant from the Dansti branch of the Basarab dynasty. But Hunyadi has made a critical miscalculation. He assumed that Mircea was just another pampered princeling who would disappear into exile or beg for mercy. He was wrong. During his months in hiding, Mircea does something remarkable. He gathers an army. Not a massive force. Wallachia's resources are too depleted for that, but a loyal core of boyars, minor nobles, and hardened soldiers who remain faithful to the House of Dracula. These men see in Mircea the bloodline of Mircea the Elder, the man who humiliated the Ottomans at Raven. They believe this boy prince has his grandfather's fire in his veins. Meanwhile, in the dungeons of Edirne, Vlad Dracula is playing his own desperate game. He negotiates with Sultan Murad, offering anything, everything, to secure his release and restore his throne. He promises increased tribute. He promises military support against Hungary. And then he offers the most terrible bargain a father can make. He offers his 2 younger sons, Vlad and Radu, as hostages to guarantee his loyalty. The Sultan accepts. Vlad Dracula is released and returns to Wallachia with Ottoman support. Hunyadi's puppet Basarab II is overthrown, and Vlad Dracula reclaims his throne in 1443. But the price has been paid. 2 young princes, ages 12 and 8, are now prisoners in Ottoman palaces, living under the constant threat of execution if their father betrays the Sultan again. Mircea reunites with his father, but the relationship is poisoned. The young prince had tasted power during his brief regency. He had survived in the wilderness, gathered loyal men, and proven himself capable of leadership. Now his father has returned as an Ottoman vassal, his 2 younger brothers held hostage in a foreign empire. Mircea supports his father publicly, but he refuses to support his father's submission to the Ottomans. He wants to fight. He wants vengeance for the humiliation of being driven from his own throne. This difference in philosophy, the father's pragmatic submission versus the son's defiant pride, will define everything that follows. The date is October 1444. The Crusade of Varna is about to begin, a massive Christian coalition led by young King Vladislav III of Poland and Hungary, János Hunyadi, and Cardinal Julian Cesarini. Their objective: to drive the Ottomans out of Europe once and for all. The Christian army gathers near the Danube, preparing to march south through Bulgaria toward the Ottoman heartland. Vlad Dracula is in an impossible position. If he supports the crusade, the Ottomans will execute his hostage sons and invade Wallachia. If he refuses to support the crusade, Hunyadi will brand him a traitor and invade from the north. He tries to play both sides. He rides to meet the Crusader army near Nicopolis and warns them that the Ottoman army is far larger than they realize, that they are marching into a trap. The crusade leaders, drunk on religious fervor and dreams of glory, ignore him. Vlad Dracula returns to Wallachia, but not before he has left something behind. His eldest son Mircea, commanding a Wallachian auxiliary unit of 4,000 cavalry. This is Mircea's moment. At 16 years old, he will lead men into battle for the first time. His father has given him experienced captains and hardened veterans, but everyone knows this is a test. If Mircea survives, he will have proven himself worthy of the throne. If he dies, well, Vlad Dracula still has 2 other sons. November 10, 1444, the Battle of Varna. The Christian coalition, approximately 20,000 men, faces an Ottoman army of over 60,000 soldiers personally led by Sultan Murad II. The battle is a catastrophe. King Vladislav III charges recklessly into the Ottoman lines, hoping to kill the Sultan and turn the tide. Instead, he is surrounded and killed, his head severed and mounted on a pike. Cardinal Cesarini drowns trying to flee across a swamp. The Hungarian and Polish infantry is shredded by Ottoman janissary gunfire and cavalry charges. It is not a battle, it is a slaughter. Mircea's cavalry is positioned on the right flank. When the center collapses and the king is killed, the entire Christian army disintegrates into a panicked retreat. Lesser commanders would have fled immediately, abandoning their men to save themselves. Mircea does the opposite. He organizes a fighting retreat, holding his 4,000 cavalry together as a cohesive unit, while thousands of terrified Christian soldiers stream past him in chaos. He leads them north through hostile Bulgarian territory, fighting off pursuing Ottoman patrols, until he reaches the Danube River. There he commandeers boats and ferries, and personally oversees the evacuation of the surviving crusader forces across the river to safety. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, of Christian soldiers owe their lives to the 16-year-old Wallachian prince who refused to abandon them. János Hunyadi survives Varna, but he never forgets what Mircea did that day. The boy had shown courage and tactical brilliance under the worst possible circumstances. He had saved Christian lives when the entire crusade had collapsed into chaos. This memory will haunt Hunyadi later, when he is forced to make a terrible decision. The year is 1445. Mircea, now 17 years old and a proven battlefield commander, launches a bold military operation. He recaptures the fortress of Giurgiu on the southern bank of the Danube. This fortress is strategically critical. It controls one of the main crossing points from Wallachia into Ottoman Bulgaria. By taking Giurgiu, Mircea has sent a message to the Ottomans. Wallachia will not be a passive vassal, but the victory is short-lived. Vlad Dracula, terrified for the safety of his two hostage sons in Ottoman custody, immediately negotiates a treaty with the Sultan. He surrenders Giurgiu back to Ottoman control in exchange for assurances that Vlad and Radu will not be harmed. Mircea is furious. He had risked his life and the lives of his men to capture that fortress, and his father gave it away without a fight. The rift between father and son deepens into a chasm. For 2 years, an uneasy peace holds. Vlad Dracula pays his tribute to the Ottomans. Mircea commands the Wallachian army and seethes with frustration. In the Ottoman palaces of Adrianople and Constantinople, young Vlad and Radu are being educated in Turkish customs, military tactics, and the arts of political manipulation. Vlad resists his captivity, earning frequent beatings and developing a hatred for the Ottomans that will define his future. Radu, younger and more adaptable, thrives in the Ottoman court and even catches the eye of the Sultan's son, Prince Mehmed. The two hostage brothers are being shaped into very different men, but in Hungary, János Hunyadi is preparing for another reckoning. The disaster at Varna has not broken his crusading spirit, it has hardened it into obsession. He blames Vlad Dracula for the failure of the crusade, convinced that if Wallachia had fully committed its forces, the outcome might have been different. By 1447, Hunyadi has gathered political support to launch another invasion of Wallachia. His objective, remove Vlad Dracula permanently and install a prince who will unquestionably support Christian Hungary against the Ottoman threat. December 1447, János Hunyadi crosses the Carpathians with a Hungarian army and allied Transylvanian Saxon forces. Vlad Dracula musters his army to resist, with Mircea commanding the Wallachian cavalry. But this time, Hunyadi's forces are overwhelming. The Wallachian army is crushed in a series of brutal engagements. Vlad Dracula realizes the battle is lost and makes a desperate decision. He flees, hoping to escape into exile and regroup. He orders Mircea to do the same. But Mircea's cavalry is surrounded. He cannot break through the Hungarian encirclement. He is captured by a detachment of Transylvanian Saxons, members of the German merchant elite, who controlled the fortified cities of southern Transylvania and held significant influence in Wallachia's own capital of Targovist. These Saxons have their own grievances against the House of Dracula. Vlad Dracula had imposed harsh taxes on their merchants and executed several Saxon traders he accused of smuggling. They see Mircea not as a brave young prince, but as the symbol of a dynasty that has brought nothing but war and instability to the region. They want to send a message, not just to Vlad Dracul, but to every future Wallachian prince who might challenge Saxon economic interests. Mircea is dragged to Targovist, the very city where he once sat on his father's throne as a 14-year-old regent. He is 19 years old now, a veteran of Varna, the conqueror of Giurgiu, a warrior who has fought Ottomans and Hungarians and survived battles that killed kings. But none of that matters now. The Saxons have decided his fate. They bring him to the central square. A crowd gathers, nobles, merchants, common people, all forced to witness what happens to princes who lose. The executioners heat an iron poker in a brazier until it glows white-hot. Mircea is held down by 4 men. He does not beg. He does not plead for mercy. According to the chronicles, he stares at his captors with the same defiant pride that his grandfather Mircea the Elder had shown when facing impossible odds at Ravin. Then they press the red-hot poker into his eyes, first the right, then the left. The smell of burning flesh fills the square. Mircea screams, a sound that will echo in the nightmares of everyone present for the rest of their lives, but he does not break. Even blind, even in agony, he does not beg, and then comes the final humiliation. They dig a pit in the cold December earth. They throw Mircea, still alive, still breathing, into that hole, and they begin to shovel dirt onto his body. Imagine it. The suffocating weight of soil pressing down on your chest. The absolute darkness, not just from blindness, but from being buried in the earth itself. The desperate animal panic as you realize you are being entombed alive. The dirt filling your mouth, your nose, your lungs. And knowing that above you, the people you once ruled are watching, doing nothing, saying nothing, as you are erased from the world. Mircea II dies in that pit, 19 years old. A prince who never had the chance to truly rule, a warrior who won battles but lost wars, a son who watched his father's compromises destroy everything their grandfather had built. But the story doesn't end with Mircea's death. It begins there. Within days of Mircea's execution, Vlad Dracul is also captured. He is killed on the orders of Janos Huniadi. Some sources say assassinated, others say executed, still others claim he was murdered by the same Saxon faction that killed his son. His body is dumped in an unmarked grave. The house of Dracul seems finished. Huniadi installs Vladislav II, a member of the rival dynasty clan, as the new prince of Wallachia. The Ottomans, furious at Huniadi's interference in their sphere of influence, release their hostage princes, 17-year-old Vlad and 12-year-old Radu, and send them back to Wallachia with a small Ottoman army to contest Vladislav's rule. In 1448, Vlad III Dracula, the younger brother who had spent 6 years as an Ottoman hostage, briefly seizes the Wallachian throne with Ottoman backing. His reign lasts 2 months before Vladislav II drives him out. Vlad flees to Moldavia, then to Hungary, where he is imprisoned by Janos Huniadi, the same man who ordered his father's death. But Vlad is patient. He waits, he learns, he studies his enemies. And he never forgets the image that must have haunted him every night, his older brother Mircea, blinded and buried alive by Saxon merchants in the streets of Targovist. In 1456, Huniadi dies of plague. Vlad III returns to Wallachia, defeats Vladislav II in hand-to-hand combat, and reclaims his throne. This time he is not a puppet prince. He is something far more dangerous. He begins a campaign of terror designed to eliminate every potential rival, every disloyal boyar, every merchant who might conspire against him. He invites the Saxon elite of Targovist, the very people who murdered his brother, to a grand feast. They come expecting negotiation, perhaps reconciliation. Instead, Vlad has them arrested. Some are impaled immediately. Others are forced to march hundreds of miles north to rebuild a ruined mountain fortress called Ponari, working until they drop dead from exhaustion. Not one of the Saxons responsible for Mircea's death survives. And when Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, the most powerful man in the world, demands that Vlad pay tribute and submit to Ottoman authority, Vlad does something no one expects. He refuses. Then he invades Ottoman Bulgaria and impales 23,000 Turkish soldiers, women, and children in a forest of stakes stretching for miles along the road to the Danube. When Mehmed leads an army of 90,000 men into Wallachia to crush this impudent prince, He finds Vlad has poisoned every well, burned every village, and left no food or supplies for the invading army. The Ottomans march through a scorched wasteland, ambushed constantly by Vlad's guerrilla forces. And when maimed reaches Targovist, the capital where Mircea was murdered, he finds the rotting corpses of 20,000 Ottoman prisoners impaled on wooden stakes arranged in concentric circles around the city. The Sultan, who had conquered Constantinople and crushed Christian armies across the Balkans, stares at the forest of the dead and realizes he is facing something he has never encountered before, a man who does not fear death because he has already lost everything. The Ottomans retreat. Wallachia remains free, at least for a few more years. Vlad III's reign of terror becomes legendary across Europe. German pamphlets depict him as a bloodthirsty monster. Ottoman chronicles describe him as a demon in human form. But in Wallachia, many see him as a hero, a man who refused to kneel, who avenged his family, who defied an empire that had crushed every other Christian kingdom in its path. If you're enjoying this story, a like really helps share these forgotten histories with more people. This is the kind of content that algorithms usually bury, so your engagement makes a real difference. But was Vlad's brutality justice or madness? Was it the righteous fury of a brother avenging his murdered sibling, or was it the calculated terrorism of a psychopath who found in his brother's death a convenient excuse for atrocity? The truth is probably both. Vlad III used impalement as a weapon of psychological warfare, designed to terrify enemies into submission without having to fight costly battles. But the sheer scale of his violence, the meticulous cruelty, the theatrical displays of corpses, the deliberate humiliation of his victims, suggests something deeper, a wound that never healed. A trauma inflicted when he was a boy of 16, locked in an Ottoman dungeon, helpless to save his father or his brother. Mircea's death created Vlad the Impaler. Not directly, perhaps. Vlad's 6 years of Ottoman captivity, his father's constant betrayals, the impossible politics of Wallachia all contributed to shaping him. But Mircea's execution provided the moral justification. It gave Vlad a narrative: I am avenging my family. I am punishing traitors. I am making sure that no Wallachian prince will ever again be tortured and buried alive by foreign merchants and corrupt boyars. And in that narrative, Mircea became something he never was in life: a martyr, a symbol. The innocent brother whose brutal death justified every impalement, every burned village, every act of terror that followed. Vlad III fought the Ottomans for years, but he was also fighting the ghosts of 1447, the year his family was destroyed and his older brother was buried alive in the mud. Vlad the Impaler's own end came in December 1476. He was killed in a skirmish with Ottoman forces, his body decapitated, and his head sent to Constantinople as proof of his death. He was approximately 45 years old, more than twice the age his brother Mircea had been when he died. His younger brother Radu, who had sided with the Ottomans and even fought against Vlad during the wars of the 1460s, had died a year earlier from illness. The three sons of Vlad Dracula, Mircea, Vlad, and Radu, were all dead before the year 1477. The House of Dracula was finished. But the legend was just beginning. Over the centuries, Vlad III Dracula became a folk hero in Romania, a symbol of resistance against overwhelming odds, a prince who refused to submit even when submission would have saved his life. In the 19th century, Irish novelist Bram Stoker borrowed Vlad's nickname, Dracula, son of the dragon, and transformed him into an immortal vampire, a monster who drinks blood and cannot die. The historical Vlad was buried in his legend, just as his brother Mircea was buried in the earth. Today in Romania, there are statues of Vlad the Impaler. There are castles marketed as Dracula's castle to tourists seeking Gothic thrills. There are history books debating whether he was a hero or a villain, whether his brutality was justified by the brutal age he lived in. But there are no statues of Mircea II, no castles, no legends. He is the forgotten brother, the one who fought at Varna, who saved Christian soldiers during the retreat, who captured fortresses and led cavalry charges, and died before his 20th birthday in the most horrific way imaginable. History remembers the monsters and the martyrs. It forgets the men who were simply brave and unlucky, but perhaps that's the most tragic irony of all. Mircea II wanted to be a warrior prince like his legendary grandfather, Mircea the Elder. He wanted to fight the Ottomans, to defend Wallachia, to build a legacy of defiance and courage. Instead, he became the justification for his younger brother's reign of terror. His death was the match that lit the fire of Vlad the Impaler's brutality. If Mircea had lived, if he had not been blinded and buried alive in 1447, would Vlad III have become Dracula? Would the Forest of Stakes ever have existed? We will never know. What we do know is this: in the frozen December earth of Targov East, there is an unmarked grave where a 19-year-old prince was buried alive by the men he once ruled. His name was Mircea. He was the eldest son of Vlad Dracula and the older brother of Vlad the Impaler. He fought at the Battle of Varna and saved hundreds of lives during the retreat. He captured fortresses and commanded cavalry and refused to beg for mercy even when they burned out his eyes. And his death unleashed a monster that the world would never forget. If you found Mircea's story as intense as I did, please give this video a like. It really helps the algorithm share this hidden history with more people. And if you want to dive deeper into the dark, forgotten corners of the past, make sure you're subscribed. I have a question for you to answer in the comments. If you had been Vlad III in 1456 and you had the power to avenge your brother's death, would you have shown mercy to the men who murdered him, or would you have impaled them all? Knowing that your vengeance would make you a legend of cruelty for 600 years, would you still do it? I read every comment, and I'd love to hear your take. Next time, we're exploring another forgotten figure from the Ottoman Wars, a woman who commanded armies, poisoned sultans, and ruled an empire from the shadows. You won't want to miss it. Mircea II died in darkness and silence, buried beneath the streets of his own capital. But his legacy lives on in the brother who avenged him, and in the question that still haunts us today: when evil destroys everything you love, does righteous vengeance make you a hero, or does it make you a monster just like them?